Hey, it's Evan Melendez, and I'm going to go over creating a lesson plan. So I want to start off by saying that I'm going through this video assuming that we've done all the initial steps to our lesson plan as far as getting our lesson books together and setting up some preferences. If you haven't done so yet, please check out our intro video to the lesson planner, and that video will go over those steps. So I want to start off by going into the lesson book screen. Now this is a listing of our lesson books, and it shows all the numbers of units and lessons that make up each lesson book. So to talk about that briefly for a second, is lesson book is kind of what represents the course, and it's the top level. It's what contains all the units and all the lessons. The unit plans are the different groupings of lesson plans. You can have multiple unit plans, and within each unit plan could be multiple lesson plans. So it just kind of groups it for you. It breaks it down. Let me jump into the unit plan screen to talk about it a little bit more. Every lesson book has to have at least one unit plan. You don't have to use multiple, but that one unit plan is where all of your lessons will go. So you could be somebody that never uses the unit plans outside of just unit plan 1, and you just create all your lessons from there. I usually recommend using unit plans so that way you could break up the groupings of lessons however you like. Maybe you even just do it by marking period 1, 2, 3, 4, however you like to teach. But I believe that using the unit plans will make things a little bit easier for you as far as organizing your lesson planner. It makes things easier when maybe you're copying from one book to another or year to year, or for your lesson pals to view your information, or even just the reviewers to take a look at your data and see what data you have in the unit plans and what groupings of your lessons are in there. Unit plans you can attach standards to, you can input summaries for, and even documents. So there's a lot that you could do with the unit plan. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that because this is more about creating lesson plans. But if I wanted to create a new unit, if I click this Add New Unit button, it's going to create a blank new unit for me. It's just going to give it the default name of unit plan and whatever number is next. That was unit plan 2. So if I create another one, it'll say unit plan 3. But you could rename these units. You could even give them colors if you wanted to. Another neat feature of this screen is if your school or your administration has set up curriculum mapped units or lesson plans, this would be the screen that you could actually import those lesson plans into your book. If your lesson book is mapped out to a course, of course, and they have it tied in the curriculum mapping piece to that same course, you'll notice there's a message at the top of my screen in green here that says there's 1 unit available for this course. Now if I click this button, it's going to show me the lesson plans that I could actually import, or the different units that I can import. So to create a lesson plan, that's why we're here to begin with. Let's go to the Lesson Plans tab. And on this tab, I have nothing created just yet, which is perfect. So I can add a lesson by just clicking this button. But before I do that, I have a couple of units in this book. So I want to select which unit I want to add the plan to. You notice I didn't really give any unique names to my units, so just as unit plan 1, 2, and 3, and the number of lessons that are in there. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to add a lesson plan to unit 1. Just click that button, and it gives me a blank lesson plan with, again, arbitrary name of lesson plan number 1. Now I could always view whichever unit I want, or all units, when I'm on this screen to make things a little bit easier. Once your amount of lesson plans gets to a large number, you may want to break it down by unit if you're using it. Another reason to use units, it makes things a little bit easier, and I could always switch books by using that drop down as well. Now some other useful fields, I can always rename my lesson, call it LAL Plan 1, just to give it a unique name, because I'm in my language arts course. The start date, so this is important because this is when the lesson is going to begin and where it's going to be placed on your lesson planner calendar. Now, important tip here is when you're picking a date, make sure that it's a date that your course or lesson book is supposed to be meeting. Now, maybe we don't know that off the top of our head because we use a complex cycle in our school, or we don't know when the holidays are. So we have a feature built in that when we select a date, we're going to check to make sure that it's valid for your lesson plan to even start there. Now in this school, I'm using the AB cycle. It's showing that this is an A day. Next to it, if you're using Monday through Friday, like a lot of schools do, or a 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to show what cycle day October 1st is. The other thing is that it's going to give you that green color and say valid date, because I placed it on a valid date. Now, if this was if I'm using an AB cycle like I am here, and this course only meets an A day, and I selected a B day, it would say it's an invalid start date. Or if I selected a holiday, it would also give me an invalid start date. Now, based on the start date and the number of dates that I have set for the lesson plan, which we do on another screen, which I'll get to in a sec, it's going to show the days and the dates for what I have set here. When I click Save Lesson, you'll actually see it says October 1st. Now, if this was a multi-day plan, say a 2-3 day, and there was nothing in the way of it from being October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, it would say October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But if October 2nd was a day that my course didn't meet, it would skip over October 2nd. It'd be October 1st, 3rd, 4th. So whatever you set for the dates, it would show there. Share, this checkbox is whether or not I want this lesson plan shared with my lesson pals. Now, I have it defaulted to be checked, and I usually recommend doing that. If you don't want to share a particular lesson, absolutely just take that off. That's fine. Your lesson pals won't be able to see it. Public library, if I have access to this checkbox, I will be able to add this particular lesson to the public library of lessons, which means that every teacher that has access to the lesson planner in the school will be able to view and copy my lesson. So it builds further on the sharing piece of the lesson pal. Linked, so this lesson isn't linked to any other lessons, but if my lesson plans were linked together, if I make changes to one, it'll also make changes to the other. So that's a nice feature when, say, you're maybe teaching 3 of the same class and you're copying lessons from one book to another. That way you don't have to go crazy and do repeat work. You just do it once and it updates all of the linked lessons. Standards, once I attach them, you'll see a standard summary as well right here. This is a PDF print lesson plan. So when I click that, it'll open up a PDF summary of my lesson plan. So let's get into adding the content to our lesson plan. I'm going to click the Modify Lesson Plan button, and this is going to open up the Modify Lesson Plan Parameters screen. And on here is where all the actual info that makes up the lesson plan is entered. So at the top section, we have some of the same fields that we saw before. What unit is this part of? What name do we give to our lesson? This days dropdown is very important. Currently goes up to a maximum number of days of 6, and the minimum of 1. But this is the number of days that the lesson plan is being taught to, or spans over your calendar. Now, we take into account cycle days and days off and all the other scheduling information that's punched into the course that represents the lesson book. So let's just say this Language Arts Literacy 6 course is a Monday through Friday, and I have it set to 4 days. So this lesson plan in particular starts on a Monday. So for 4 days, it's going to be taught Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's going to show up on my calendar like that. Now, what happens if, let's just say, Tuesdays happens to be a day off? So it will go and be taught on Monday. It'll skip Tuesday because the course doesn't meet or school's closed that day. And then it would be also taught on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we will skip over the days that need to be skipped and still take into account how many days are left in the lesson. So you don't really have to go crazy with that. Just by having it set and having all the calendar information and scheduling information built into the system, we know how to display it on your calendar and move things around. Time's an optional field. You can set when the lesson plan is going to be taught. Now, this is useful because there is a view on the lesson planner calendar and you could sort things by time instead of by book. That's really useful for K through 5s that really teach and have their students grouped by homeroom all day instead of a traditional schedule. So when you view your calendar by the times that you have set in there, you could have a lesson plan from this one book meet in the beginning of the day and also meet at the end of the day because that's the way you wanted to teach it. It's just another way of being flexible with how you want to teach on the calendar. Shareable in public library, we went over that on the other screen, does the same stuff. Standards, so currently I have no standards linked to this lesson plan, but if I click this button, it's going to open up a search window for me. Now this standards window is actually the same one that we have in the gradebook, so if you've used it before, this is going to be familiar to you. Now I can pick any of the subjects. I actually had this lesson book set up to default to the language arts subject, so that already saved me some time. I can set a standard. I also wanted to maybe hone down on a particular standard strand if I wanted to. I'm going to leave it to all standards and subjects because I want to search that way. I could always type in CPI keywords if I wanted to. The grade levels, so this pulled 6, 7, and 8 from the parameters I had set up on my lesson book already. So there's some stuff that was already in here. Favorites only, if you have that checked, it'll only bring up the standards that you've starred. Let's just pretend this is the first time I'm doing that, so I don't have any favorites. If I click search standards, it's going to search based on everything that I set up here in my parameters piece. Now, when I was talking about favorites, to the right of all the standards is a star. If I star these two off, check off favorites only, it'll just bring those up. So I'm going to just do a full search in here. Now I can select as many standards as I want. And they're all in here. We have all the state required standards pre-built in there for you. So I have it all set, and when I'm ready I just scroll down and click use check standards. Now it's going to add the 5 that I checked off, and in order to just have that saved I have to just click the save lesson button to retain that change, and now I have those 5 standards on there. If I click this standard check, this box now, I could actually remove the standards as I want to. Select all, select 1, select 2. Whoops, I didn't want to put those on there, so I'm going to click the remove button and it'll take those standards off. I'm also not married to that subject or standard strand at all. I could always do another search. I could even mix and match. Not saying that you would want to do this in reality, but I could totally add math standards to this as well if I really wanted to. I just want to show the fact that you're not stuck on a certain strand or certain standard set just because they added it from one grouping before. So these other fields that are below the standard search, they are part of your lesson planner template. Now your template and your fields are going to be your school's template or maybe your department's template, depending on how the administration has set you up. Maybe you're using our template, so these fields are going to look just like this. But you may have different things, and it's completely different. But for the most part, the way that they work, the ones that we have built in have some check boxes that you could just check things off if you want. These are some short text fields that you could type whatever you want into. You could also have these larger field boxes that you could type a lot more characters into, but everything that you type in here is going to become part of this lesson plan, part of this lesson plan summary. That you're going to see from your calendar screen or from when you use a printout. So anything that I type in here is going to be available to be viewed by the reviewers, by my lesson pals, and of course by myself when I'm actually using the lesson plan. So for example, I'll just type this in here, and I want to save that information that I typed in there by clicking the Save Lesson button. This lesson assignment section towards the bottom of the lesson plan. So this is where Gradebook and Lesson Planner connect or integrate. I can create Gradebook assignments from this lesson plan without ever leaving this screen. So if I want to do so, I just type in a name for the assignment, call it LAL, and we'll call it Assignment 1, and I'll click the Add button. When I click the Add button, it's going to refresh the screen, so I have to scroll back down, And now I have a modify, a trash can, and a push to gradebook checkbox. So what do I want to do? I want this to go to the gradebook, so I'm going to check it off. It's going to open up some assignment options for me. So these probably look familiar to you if you've been using the gradebook. And it's pulling from the gradebook because I tied this lesson book to my gradebook in an earlier step. So category, these are going to be the profile categories that are set up in this gradebook. So I'm going to select homework, grade type. We have all the major ones, all the ones that your profile is set up to have. Numeric, alphabetic, checks, OSU, they're all in there. I'm going to say numeric. And I'm going to say the total points, the highest score for this numeric rating is going to be out of 100. It's for the parent portal, and yes, I do want it to display on my gradebook spreadsheet. So I'm going to click the Save Lesson button. Scroll back down. Now I see that assignment is in the gradebook as a homework, and it's named assignment LAL assignment 1. It's due on the date the start date that I had set here for the lesson planner, but I could always change that. I could always set that to a different date if I want to. And I could always click on this and actually go into the gradebook and edit the assignment if I wanted to as well. Now you might notice this message that says no grades available. So when I grade this assignment in my gradebook, it's actually going to pull over my class average and tell me the class average of the assignment that's on there. There's no limitation to the number of assignments that I can have on there. Let me create another one real quick. So you can create as many assignments that you want off of this one lesson plan. So the nice piece about that is I can create 2 homeworks and a test, because maybe this one lesson that spanned all week justified having multiple assignments coming off of it. So I can make this the test, and it's also numeric points, and I'll click save real quick, and now I have 2 assignments that came off of it in the gradebook. So it's all about saving time. This way I don't have to jump around to do this. So when I'm setting up my lessons, I can also preset all of my gradebook assignments in there as well. So when I go to the gradebook, it's all set there for me. So all I have to do is really grade the assignment once the students have taken it. The last piece here in the lesson plan itself is the document part. So you can upload multiple documents. All the major file types are supported. I can upload a image. I can upload a video if I wanted to. Word doc, Excel, whatever I want on there. Now these attachments are for really myself as well as the reviewers to see. So the idea would be maybe there's a picture or there's a certain attachment that I want in the lesson. So when I'm teaching this lesson to my students, I can quickly from my calendar just click on the attachment and maybe open up the video for people to see, because my computer's hooked up to a projector in my classroom. So there's a lot of cool things that you could do with that. No limitation to the amount of documents that you can attach to your lesson plan, with the one exception of server space, and that's something that you as a teacher aren't really concerned with. So everything that I've created here is going to be on the calendar now. If I go into the calendar, and where did I put it? I put it October 1st. So I go over to October 1st for LIL, we're going to see it. I started October 1st and I made it span 4 days. So I have it on Thursday, I have it on Friday, and if I go to the next week, it'll continue on into Monday and Tuesday. And I can always click edit to go back in if I want to. It brings me right back to that lesson planner parameters screen. It's the same one, all the different things that I did before, and I can always edit that. Now you can also create lesson plans from your calendar, and to do that you just go to whichever day cell, we call it, that you want to create the lesson plan for, and you click the create button. And when I do that, we're going to get a pop-up window that asks me what unit do I want to put that lesson plan into. Now all the units that currently exist in this lesson book are there, but another neat feature is I could create a brand new unit from it if I wanted to. So this is really kind of a quick create feature through the calendar. This takes me directly into that modify lesson plan screen, in which I can edit all the data, add attachments, do the lesson assignments, everything that we went over before directly from here. Now, no method's wrong. You can create them from the calendar if you want. You can create them from the lesson book screen if you want. No method is wrong on there. I think that creating them through the calendar is a little bit faster, but when you're trying to plan ahead and such and work with multiple books, I think that it might be easier for you to do it through this method. Again, no method's wrong. You can create the lesson plans however you like. When it comes to the calendar and all the other functionality that you can and all the buttons that are on here and everything that you could do with the calendar, we're going to get into a little bit more detail on that in another video.